Hello. Today, the news is telling you that Iran is being crushed, but Iran is the one rejecting the deal. So, who's actually in control right now? Because those two things do not go together. This is the official message coming from out of the White House.
Coming today, as always. We're going to start with some scheduling announcements. This evening, President Trump will deliver remarks at Union Station for a political dinner. Tomorrow morning, the president will host the second cabinet meeting of the year and the 11th cabinet meeting of his second term. And later tomorrow afternoon, the president will host a Greek Independence Day celebration in the East Room. On Friday, the president will celebrate National Agriculture Day alongside nearly 1,000 farmers who are coming in from across the country for the first event of the season on the South Lawn, so pray for good weather, to highlight the president's successful policies in support of America's farmers, including efforts to lower input costs, open new trade markets, bolster the farm safety net, double the death tax exemption, end taxes on rural property loan interest, and create rural opportunity zones. Also, I'm pleased to announce that President Trump's meeting and a long-awaited meeting with President Xi in China will now take place in Beijing on May 14th and 15th. First Lady Melania and President Trump will also host President Xi and Madam Peng for a reciprocal visit in Washington, D.C. at a later date to be announced this year. Turning to the ongoing military operations in Iran, the United States military continues to decimate the terrorist Iranian regime's offensive and defensive capabilities. Just over 3 weeks in, it's abundantly clear that Operation Epic Fury has been a resounding military triumph. More than 9,000 enemy targets have been struck to date. Compared to the start of the operation, Iran's ballistic missile attacks and drone attacks are down by roughly 90%. The United States is also annihilating the Iranian regime's navy. We have destroyed more than 140 of their naval vessels, including almost 50 mine layers. This is the largest elimination of a navy over a 3-week period since World War II. Again, let me reiterate, this is the largest elimination of a navy on the face of the planet in a 3-week period since World War II. We are systematically dismantling Iran's defense industrial base, which will prevent future threats to the region. Our military also remains laser focused on eliminating the regime's threat to the free flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz. Over the weekend, we dropped several 5,000-pound bombs on an underground facility used to store equipment, including anti-ship cruise missiles and mobile missile launchers positioned along the coastline of the strait. Our military efforts grow more successful with each passing day, steadily degrading Iran's ability to terrorize merchant ships. For all of these reasons, we are very close to meeting the core objectives of Operation Epic Fury, and this military mission continues unabated. From the outset, President Trump and the Department of War estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve this critical mission. 25 days in, the greatest military the world has ever known is ahead of schedule and performing exceptionally. Day by day, the Iranian regime is being crippled, and their ability to threaten the United States and our allies is being significantly weakened. Their ambitions of building a nuclear weapon have also been crushed to an even greater degree than they were in Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025. That's why you're beginning to see the regime look for an exit ramp. They recognize they are being crushed. Their ability to attack American and ally forces, as well as their ability to defend their own territory, is dwindling literally hour by hour. Following President Trump's powerful threat on Saturday evening, it was made clear to the United States that Iran wanted to talk. President Trump is willing to listen. As President Trump announced on Monday, the United States has been engaged over the last 3 days in productive conversations, which led the president to temporarily instruct the Department of War to postpone planned strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure only. The remaining elements of the Iranian regime have another opportunity to cooperate with President Trump, permanently abandon their nuclear ambitions, and cease actively threatening America and our allies. But the president's preference is always peace. There does not need to be any more death and destruction. But if Iran fails to accept the reality of the current moment, if they fail to understand that they have been defeated militarily and will continue to be, President Trump will ensure they are hit harder than they have ever been hit before. President Trump.
It looks as though we're in control, but I don't believe that, because Iran always comes out and contradicts it, that Iran is weakening. And this is all moving towards some kind of resolution or not. Because why are we getting contradictory stories? It doesn't sound as though we're going to get out of this war anytime soon. And I don't understand why they keep telling us that this is going to be over or they're winning, and Iran keeps saying the wrong thing. It sounds steady, it sounds contained, but we know it's a lie, right? Why does she always lie about these things?
Keeping them as low as he can during this short-term combat operation, and they're going to go right back down when this is over.
Thank you.
Gabe.
Thank you, Karoline. Just within the past few hours, Iranian state TV has said that Iran has rejected the U.S.'s 15-point plan to end the war. What's the White House's response to that, and have these talks hit a dead end?
They have not. Talks continue. They are productive, as the president said on Monday, and they continue to be. However, I saw a 15-point plan that was floated in the media. I would caution reporters in this room from reporting about speculative points or speculative plans from anonymous sources. The White House never confirmed that full plan. There are elements of truth to it, but some of the stories I read were not entirely factual. So I am not going to negotiate on behalf of the president here at the podium. What I will tell you is these talks are ongoing. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details that have been exchanged between the United States and Iran at this time.
Well, yesterday.
Wow. Okay. So, and that's exactly where the picture starts to shift. It starts to go downhill here, right? Because now you hear Iran rejected the plan, and at the same time, you're telling people it's still productive. And once those two things sit next to each other, that story, it just don't feel right. See, we really can't believe everything these people say, because every time they open their mouth, they lie about something. They lie about what these people are saying, and they're lying about a 15-point plan. And somebody put a 15-point plan out there. And who put the 15-point plan out there? You notice nobody's saying anything. You notice that, right? No 15-point plan, right? Hold on. Listen to Iran, because Iran ain't trying to hear it. You don't understand what he's saying, but we understand the rejection.
A 15-point proposal from the U.S. to end the war. Iranian state media quoting top officials saying that it will end the war when it decides to do so, and laying out 5 conditions Tehran wants met. This comes after President Trump touted progress in reported talks with the country, suggesting both sides were close to a deal. But the fighting is escalating. The IDF says it's still striking targets across Iran, including 2 sites that were allegedly used to produce naval cruise missiles. ABC's foreign correspondent Tom Soufi-Burge is in Tel Aviv and joins me now. Tom, great to see you. What is Iran demanding in order to even consider an end to this war?
Yes, Stephanie, I don't think we know the specifics of what Iran is demanding in this latest round of negotiations. But given the fact that we had negotiations before this war at the end of February and before the 12-day war back in the summer, I think we have a fair idea. I mean, Iran, in terms of its maximalist demands, wants the U.S. to decommission, leave its U.S. bases in the Gulf. No chance of President Trump agreeing to that. Right. It also wants relief from sanctions. I think more than anything this time around, though, given the rhetoric coming out of Tehran, is that the Iranians are looking for some kind of guarantee that would mean that the U.S. and Israel will not attack Iran once again if there were to be a deal. But there's lots of ifs right now. I mean, there's no real sign that the maximalist demands on the U.S. side and the Iranian side before the war could be reconciled this time around, given what's happened over the last 3.5 weeks.
So when you hear that, it doesn't change the story. Then it changes. The only thing it changes is the rhetoric that's coming out of the White House. So the rhetoric coming out of the White House is not the truth. we hear there is no progress. There's no progress. There is no change. United States is not giving up their bases. They want them to give up their bases. They want them to give their money back. They want them to stop bombing them. All of that is not happening. So both of those versions, White House version and the Iranian version, who's telling the truth? We don't know. I tend to believe the Iranians because the Iranians have nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose, okay? But why is it that the White House is continuing to try to present strength when we can hear the other side? The other side comes right out after the president and Karoline Leavitt comes out and says their narrative, and then Iran comes out and says theirs, and it's two totally different narratives. Talking about progress, moving forward, talks are happening, but on the other side, Iran is saying those talks aren't even real. And the White House put out this 15-point plan, and then Iran rejected it. So the White House is pretending like they didn't put the plan out. The White House did put the plan out, okay? And Iran is not taking anything the United States has to say. They're not dealing with the United States until the United States stop bombing. They start pulling their people back. Iran is in it to win it, okay? They don't trust the American people. They don't trust Israel, right? I really don't trust Israel either because we had no business going into this war. They keep saying Iran is weakening, yet and still we keep hearing bombs being dropped. We keep hearing them pushing back. But then Iran turns around, rejects the proposal, says we're not doing that. So which one is telling the truth? I tend to believe that the Iranians really did reject the 15-point plan. I would love to get my hands on that 15-point plan. I would love to know what they proposed to Iran, because right now Iran has Israel and United States over a barrel in Hormuz, in that Strait of Hormuz. You can't do anything with that Strait of Hormuz. And everybody needs that strait, okay? Until they resolve that, there is no peace, there is no peace plan, okay? There is no deal. There's nothing close to a deal, okay? We're in the middle of a war, and United States is sending troops, Marine troops. So if they're sending Marine troops and they're continuing to bomb, how are we coming to an end in this war? Strikes are still happening. Targets are still being hit. Iran is still hitting Israel. Everything is still active, and there don't seem to be any end in sight. The Strait of Hormuz is the talking point. That's the big problem. Okay? Conversation stops right there because nobody can stop Iran from doing what they're doing with the Hormuz. The disruption is there. Fuel prices are skyrocketing. Shipping delays, cost of goods. The ripple effect is horrific. And we just gonna be in it like this. So you got to step back and look who's telling the truth and who's lying. Okay, it's no clear one story. There's no clear winner. I don't know how this is going to end. I don't know how. One version is in control. One version is saying we're not doing anything you tell us to do. How do you deal with people who won't listen to you at all? They're willing to go balls to the walls to do what they got to do in order to win. Okay. And I don't understand how this administration gets out of this. I don't understand how we get out of it without going with boots on the ground. I don't see how we're going to not put more boots on the ground. Okay. So it's what's being said, what's being shown, and what's actually happening. And all of those things don't align. Okay. They do not align. So the gap and the story continues until they figure out what they're going to do with the Strait of Hormuz. So I'll leave it right here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.